Are any or all public comment turns in?
I have none.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Brown?
Here.
You are so bad. I left you a present. Mrs. Mitchell? Here. Mrs. Root?
Here.
Mr. Sawalish?
Here.
Mrs. Walters?
Here.
Mrs. Galbraith is here. Mr. Albrecht?
Here. Please stand for the pledge.
Mouthful.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sure. Our mission statement is to empower each student to positively impact the world for a bright new future.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment? And so next up is the good news report. Turn it over to Dr. Cogley.
This is always my favorite part. We're very excited to have our high school back. We're going to have Miss Trish come up in just a few minutes. We have several things to be sharing about our high school. In particular, we've invited the Ignition team. They have done some remarkable work at the building. And this really was the genesis from a project that we had them on, partnering up with the Hazel Crest Police Department and some of the other local high schools all got together. When was this? September, I think it was. And they were really sending the message about how to really focus on having a better understanding with our police force and working together in partnership and having more voice. And so the high school selected some young leaders for our future to come and participate. And from that, they came up with a special project that we're going to have them share with you. And then Ms. Trish, is there anything else that you would like to add? And maybe do some introductions, and we've got this fine podium there for you. Thank you for coming.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
All right. So first of all, I'd like to start off with the 10 Shared Principles Cafe, which our students were invited, some student government, students in Ignition were invited to a community forum. It was October 3rd at Homewood Flossmoor High School, and it was invitation only. After 2 years of development, the Illinois Association of Chiefs of Police and the NAACP co-authored and signed a living document entitled the 10 Shared Principles. The Principles is a living document. It is a dialogue between law enforcement and the community to maintain the relevancy of the 10 shared principles. Culminating, there was a roundtable discussion on experiences, suggestions, and commitment, which the students, myself, and Dr. Cogley participated. Just to run through the 10 principles. Number 1, we value the life of every person. Number 2, we will treat everyone with dignity and respect. Number 3, we reject discrimination toward any person that is based on race, ethnicity, religion, color, nationality, immigrant status, sexual orientation, gender, disability, or familiar status. Number 4, build and rebuild trust. Number 5, procedural justice, which is dealing with fairness and the opportunity to be heard. Number 6, community policing, which includes community partnerships involving law enforcement and law enforcement activities with the residents. 7, develop a strong ongoing relationships between the law enforcement and communities of color at the leadership level and at the street level. Number 8, community and departments mutual responsibility to encourage all citizens to gain a better understanding and knowledge of law enforcement. Number 9, diversity. They support diversity in the police departments and in the law enforcement profession. Number 10, de-escalation training. They believe de-escalation training should be required to ensure the safety of the community members and officers. And the room was packed. There was over 40 departments there, chief of police, and they sat with the students, they sat with school administrators, and there was a Q&A afterwards. And they went through each and every principle in detail, which I will not go through. I just wanted to give you an idea of what that was about. Secondly, a couple of our students from student government were invited to the first Congressional Youth Cabinet by Congressman Robin Kelly. So she comprised this youth cabinet of students. It's a nonpartisan initiative to show so that students can exercise their voice. It was the first meeting that we attended together, and there will be many meetings to come. They even have requirements. To be a part of this commission, you had to have at least a minimum 2.3 GPA or higher, a strong commitment to personal growth, and reliable attendance history at school. Always important. Next, I would like to read our fall conference players 2019. So for girls tennis, Aaliyah Harper, Amia Brown, Liana Santayo, Micah Lear, Aria Davis. For cross country, girls, Kendall Crossley. For boys cross country, Colin Daniels and Damon Taylor. For boys soccer, Juan Rodriguez Romo, Antonio Esquivel, and Miguel Galvin. For volleyball, Madison LaBranche. Boys golf, Connor Bruns, Connor Meyer, and David Conley. And for football, first team offense, Trayvon Rudolph, Juwan Smith, Coy Hampton, Bobby Winton, Xavier Slayton, Savion Henderson, and Matt Simpson. Special teams for the football, Chucky Smith, Eric Morgan. First defense team, Terry Elias, Ray Arabala, Rashawn Gaston. Second team offense, Jaden Roberts. Second team defense, and I didn't know all these different teams existed. I thought we just had one football team. But Nehemiah Maddox. And so those are all the names of the students who won fall conferences. And so last but not least, I wanted to bring to you our Ignition group with their advisor. Please come up.
Mr.
Mr. Fitzgerald.
Before we go further, that first item that you talked about with the 40 different law enforcement,
Yes.
did I miss, how did we get involved in that?
They reached out to us.
Okay, so that.
They
group
reached out
us.
to the superintendents of each district.
Ms. Gilbert, I had included that in my FYI at the early in the year, so you
Oh,
probably had
okay.
forgotten. As I was networking with the other superintendents in the area, this is what we started working on together.
I think that's awesome. That's why I was
I think
curious.
it is
how
too.
we got-
And there is an ongoing project with the students that attended with our SRO.
Thank you.
So now I'd like to bring to you our ignition students and Mr. Fitzgerald.
Okay, so about a month ago, I scheduled a meeting with Mrs. Trish to discuss possible solutions to the school's altercation problem. I felt compelled to do so because it seemed as if the school was taking giant steps backwards from the progress that we made last year. She expressed to me that not only is the violence a problem, but the dozens of kids rushing to record them are as well. I now see that it is a safety hazard and it shines a negative light on the school. With that being said, I decided to pitch the idea for a public service announcement.
The purpose for the PSA was to possibly change the views of those who may have wronged in the past. The video consisted of speakers who are known to be leaders, role models of the school. We had mentors to represent Club Street from the drama club all the way to the football team, so that everyone has someone to relate to. We included possible incentives for good behavior and clearly expressed our frustration with the acts of few affecting the learning environment of many. We challenged the students of Crete to be their best selves. So far, a lot of the students have responded positively.
This video not only represents growth for Crete, but it also inspires scholars to get back in the school spirit. We, the Warriors, hope you enjoy it.
You remember those? What they say? Fitz is coming with his. Fitz has got it. That's the problem, there's no volume cord.
It was made a quick time for Apple, so
Trick or treat.
that's why it's done.
I would do anything. Does it work off your computer? Well, why don't we just do that? What do you think?
Yeah. That's a good idea.
Because it's working off his computer too, we could just turn the volume up.
They show it on the screen, but just let's hear the volume, the sound of theirs.
Play button. same.
Yeah. If you can get it exactly the same.
Are you switching it back to this thing?
Here, you can
Here's
put
a
the
mic.
microphone. Oh, he's going to that one.
Whatever.
Close.
The altercations at the school must stop.
The music's not there.
Great scholars who know so much. We can't.
And this up to the speakers.
What does it make the rest of the year for? We must improve behavior. And stop giving the violent behavior a crowd. If we learn to walk away from altercations, that's how eventually, they won't stop. Only then will we be rewarded with fun assemblies, Redemption Day, and more. We want better. We need better. We are better. We are Crete Monee.
So that was the presentation. I'm sorry, there was some technical difficulties. But, let's give a round of applause to Mr. Fitzgerald, William Fitzgerald, and our students from Ignition. Thank you.
Is there any chance we can get that up on the website, the district website, where we can play it? Sure. Is that something we could work on? So everybody can see it?
I'm sure it is.
Okay.
Yes,
It's
we,
on your website right now.
Okay. Great. Check it out there.
It's on
Thank
there now? Beg your pardon? Did you say it was on there now? Oh, no.
no, to put on later.
I'll put it on.
Thank you, you did an excellent job.
Thank you very much.
And from what I understand, it was very well received by the other students in each of your homerooms.
Okay, thanks again for that. Next, we have a need to go into closed session for, a litigation update. So can I have a motion to go into closed session for the I'll start again. Can I have a motion to go into closed session for litigation and action against affecting on or on behalf of public bodies will file and defend before a court administrative tribunal when the public body finds that an action is probable or imminent, in which case the basis for your financial is built on the essentials. So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Walters?
Sorry.
Mr. Wallace?
You want to go first?
Mrs. Ray?
Aye.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mrs. Galbraith is in there, Mr. Albrecht?
Aye.
But my brother on his birthday, my knee is bent. I hurt my back. And I'm just like, and so my ankle just went out because I twisted it too.
Next up is administrative update, superintendent.
Here. Okay, we've got a couple items here. For one, this was a very special week. It was American Education Week, where we have an opportunity to acknowledge and celebrate all of our staff. And this last week, the board, the district had sent all their employees some popcorn. Just way of just saying thank you for all the work that they do. We're very proud of our staff here. They work very hard, and they're always there to do the best for our students. So we wanted to certainly publicly acknowledge them. Also, on November 15th is School Board Members Day, and that's from the ISB, where we take this opportunity to recognize all of you. In fact, we've done a couple things this week. If you've noticed our poster in the back, Natalie Nash designed all of that, beautiful posters. Those are in each of our buildings, and those have been up all week to acknowledge. No, these are not dartboards. To acknowledge all the work that you do, and then also underneath your table here, we've also provided you with a little bit of popcorn as well. But also have a special certificate. We want to certainly thank all of you for your hard work. I don't think anyone knows the amount of work that each one of you does on a daily basis to try to help us run this district and do really good things for students. You're here to represent not only the taxpayers, the community, but our students here. And I know this board has a real passion for our students. I see it every day when you come, all the questions that you ask. And I truly am honored and privileged to work with all of you. So just wanted to say thank you. I have a special certificate for each one of you to have framed in your office, right? So I've got Sandy. I have this one for you. Thank you. over here. Cheryl. Brenda, our newest member.
Thank you. That's nice.
I got a couple left here. Janine.
Okay, flip a coin. You. Flip a coin.
Oh.
Mr. Brown.
Thank you. It's called saving the best for last.
Truly, on behalf of the district, we want to certainly acknowledge and thank you for all your work. We do appreciate the hours.
What day is Superintendent's Day?
No. That's right. I wanted to give just a brief update on the committees that we have. We have our finance and facility committees that have been running this fall. As you recall, this last November, we had a joint committee meeting, and those are going to be the minutes that you approved this evening. And we've been really pleased with the participation from our community members at these meetings. As you recall, what happened at the last facility meetings, we gave an update, which is also on our website, by the way, of where we were at with our facilities. And they are even referenced in our minutes here this evening on page 29. So I'm just going to give a couple little highlights there publicly. We gave the last finance committee updates. We were tasked with really thinking about borrowing money instead of 20 years, going out to 30 years to help reduce the overage on that. So my task is, and Mr. Albrecht's task is to go out to our legislators and ask if they would put that bill on for the spring session. So we're going to be making those appointments shortly and going out and talking with them. And then we'll wait to see if that passes, if we can indeed stretch it out for 30 years. And then we'll bring that information back to the finance meeting. The facility committee, this is sort of what was proposed, is creating one large elementary building, which would have been Crete and Balmoral combined, with discussion of adding EC. We would be adding life safety and enhancements to Coretta Scott King Magnet School and Talala. We would relocate Monee Educational Center to the current administration and ELC building, and then adding to programming there. And then relocating the district offices. At that time, we had talked about locating them to University Park in an open rental property. And then there was a consensus to demolish the sixth grade center and the dome. We continue to talk about some of the ideas that were going to be coming with the new MEC, and that was going to be moving the manufacturing program over to the MEC building, where we could really focus on career training and developments, perhaps culinary arts, airline pilot training, carpentry, electrician, robotics. We had talked about adding an alternative school then. We already have one, of course, but this would be housed within this facility. We would be including an accelerated half-day option that would be available for online programs for students that wanted to compact their experience. And we were looking at night classes and GED programs that would be included in this model as well. Other discussions that came up for the building and grounds was, do we want to just lease the property at University Park or remodel it? And the price was about $2 million. So the committee tasked administration to explore other land sales in the area to see if it was more economical to go and find other land and purchase it and build on that. And so that is what I have done this week, and we will be presenting that information at tomorrow's facility meeting, and that will be at 4:30 to 6:30. So that is where we are at with that. Once again, for anybody in the community, please look on our website. It is listed under there with superintendent committees. It has all of our minutes on there, so you can track everything that we are doing and moving forward. Okay. Let's see here. Donations. All right, we've got a few donations here. The middle school would like to thank their PTO. They purchased a projector screen for the gym, so they were very appreciative of that. Crete Elementary School would like to thank Officer Furman. He gave a presentation to our third graders about train safety. Friend of Crete gave a generous monetary gift, and that was used by all the classroom teachers. And Mrs. Gavin and Mrs. Blair, they presented a presentation for students about their Washington, D.C. trip, which highlighted our veterans during that time. So they wanted to make sure that they thanked those folks. And last but not least, our highlight here. As you know, we've been working on the strategic plan and beginning to implement many of the pieces on it, but we needed to have an equity statement. So we have an equity committee that has been working since actually last spring in preparing an equity statement. And tonight, we have several members of that committee that will be presenting. So Heather Godbout, would you come on up? And you have Christina. Thank you. All right.
Sorry. I'm Heather Godbout, literacy coach at the high school and member of the district equity team, and this is
Christina. I'm Christina Flores, program IB coordinator at Crete Monee High School.
And we're going to share with you today just a little bit about the process that we went through in developing the equity statement, and then kind of premiere to you the finished product. I don't know, it's a living document, right? First, we just want to acknowledge the team members. These are the folks that are on the team. All of us have been going to learning opportunities in various places, coming together to have conversations around what our core beliefs are, what direction we think the district should go in terms of equity, and how we can best meet the needs of all of our students in a culturally responsive way. So just take a moment to bask in the glory that is all of those people.
And we'd also like to thank a few of our members from the audience.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for support.
Ellen Fitzgerald, Betsy Crawford, and Michelle Robinson are here as well to support us. All right, so here's what we did. So we started by researching equity statements from districts around the country, just to see what else was out there in terms of the kinds of statements that districts had put out. By looking at those statements, it kind of helped us to identify what our core values were when it came to equity and wanting to make sure that we captured those in any statement that we would write. And we went through and we identified specific words and phrases that we thought would be important to include. And then we drafted a statement that basically is going to have three parts. So the first part, which you should have somewhere, a handout that has more text about all of this, is that's a true statement that I'm saying right now? They have the handout, the whole. Yes, okay, thank you. So there are three parts. The first part is we're going to focus on the individual, right? And so what we did is just pulled out some of the terms that we thought were the most important from that section. We know that when we're looking at our individual students, they are all unique. We have a lot of diversity in our district. We know that community is very important and that we need to keep a focus on community. Those three words, welcome, value, and empower, are going to be ones that are going to be very important for us as we move forward. Because we want to make sure that we as a system are welcoming, that we value everyone, and that we are empowering our students. And we are empowering them to be able to function in a multicultural world. The second section focuses on systems. So when we are looking at all of the systems in our district, from the classrooms up to the community level, we want to be very intentional about looking at our culture, our climate, our policies, and our practices through an anti-racist and anti-oppressive lens, so that when we are looking at the way that we do business, that we are making sure that we are focusing on people first, and that we're doing it in a way that is not perpetuating any marginalization of any of our students or any inequities that already exist in the system. We want to dismantle those and replace them with something better. And here's how we're going to do that.
So we decided to put together, based on some of the things that we talked about, what we're committed to doing as part of this process. So we outlined some of those for the team. So the first one is to foster authentic relationships, and that's work that's been beginning in all of the buildings. from faculty meetings to our PLC work, just really focusing. I mean, recently we talked about, we've even taken some of the training that we had at our equity team meeting and pushed it out to the staff at large. It's being reiterated as we're developing units. So just really working hard on developing those relationships with students, because we know that that is the best way to create equity, is to make sure that people feel heard and feel connected. We have been analyzing data, but we're gonna just kind of adjust that lens that we're taking a look at and just really make sure that we're focusing on subgroups, and we're focusing on cultural issues for students that they identify through their focus groups, so that we can direct resources and opportunities based on need for those students. As I understand it, we've been working on recruiting diverse staff, but that's something we know we need to continue to do, is to make sure that we're recruiting staff who know by experience what our students experience. So that's something that we'll continue to do. Also, I should mention that there are other people here who know things that are happening in other buildings. So if anyone has ideas that they would like to interject on, feel free to jump in. Identifying and removing barriers in our current policies, procedures, and systems. So as we do this cultural competency work, as we learn more about equity, it equips us to identify these barriers so that we can more focus our problem-solving strategies. So like we know what we need to attack. Promoting cultural competency, and that's already happening to some extent. Just even having an equity team gives a voice to this idea. We're being trained and then pushing out those trainings to other people. And I know, like, even at the middle school, I mean, I'm the IB coordinator at the middle school, so I have to throw a pitch out there. But you know, we really are focused on international mindedness and paying attention to other people and other perspectives. So that is something that we've really worked hard to start to try to build in with our staff as we push that out to our students. We know from analyzing data that there is predictability based on racial and ethnicity, gender identity, family income, all of the things that you see listed up there. And we believe that through our work, through finding focal points that we can address and problem solve, that we're gonna see a change in the data that will show that we're working to eliminate this predictability. So like no longer will you be able to see some stats on people and feel like, yeah, that makes sense, because that's what we see every year. We want to see something different, and that's what this work is all about. We want to make sure that groups are meaningful and authentically represented in our curriculum. So particularly with things I know we worked on even last year with the middle school, you know, Black History Month. There are some heavy hitters and some activities that happen that are, you know, pretty canned and pretty stock, pretty Pinteresty. And we really want to think deeper than that. Like we really want to think about how are people really being meaningfully represented? How are issues being authentically presented? To what extent can we do that? How can we improve that depth and complexity for our students? We want to empower our students to demonstrate agency by giving them a voice to address their concerns in equity. The CEC is going to be doing some focus groups. I know at the high school in particular, I'm not sure what's down the pipe for the rest of us. So, I mean, really just, you know, in a process of change, the adults need to kind of become comfortable with the lingo before we can introduce things to the students. So we anticipate that as the adults become more comfortable with this idea of, you know, equity and cultural competency, that we'll be able to bring in our students more and more and more, beginning with the high school students, because, you know, that's where they are developmentally. Like they're a little more ready to have those discussions. And then as we become more comfortable, really what we want is to hear more from our students. And we want to see them doing things like you saw our students doing today. That's what we want to see our students doing, is taking an active role in the change. And back to Ellen.
All right, so what are we doing next? So we are taking that statement and we are going to be presenting it to principals at a joint meeting of the equity team and the principals after the first of the year. At that time, we will introduce the statement, and then the equity team has come up with an activity for them to do with their staff back in their building that is related to those three key words of welcome, value, and empower, just to get teachers thinking about where we already are in terms of those terms. So what do we do that is welcoming? How do we show that we value our students and each other? And what are we doing to empower our students to use their voice and to be active participants in this system that we have created? Do you have any questions for us?
Can you go back to slide?
Theoretically, I can do that.
It's way back.
I'm not sure for all the working parents that have all a representative from all of these schools. I don't think I saw it around anymore.
I'm not really sure.
Some of them don't say where they're from. I did notice that. See, some don't.
Someone want to talk about that?
Actually, the way that the team was formed was last year, if you remember, we sent the group to Harvard. And when we did that, we invited all of our teachers, district-wide, if they were interested to apply. And so those folks that are up there are the ones that applied to go to Harvard. And that was the group that we had that expressed that initial interest in being a part of the team. So we weren't looking at it by school. We were simply looking at those people that expressed an interest in being part of the equity group.
Okay. But the principals from each school, they're going to be the principals. So,
Well, they're going to be engaged in the work that we've done. So once we decided what we were going to do with the equity statement, we developed something for them to do with their staffs to introduce the equity statement to them. But the principals weren't involved in. I mean, they may have, I don't know, but like, for example, from the middle school, the people from the middle school, like we applied of our own accord. Like we got the email from Laura, we said, yes, this is something we want to do, and then we applied. So, I'm sorry?
Harvard students, you go to Harvard.
Well,
I mean, I'm not.
I would have liked to, but.
There is next year.
I went to Harvard's team members, were they?
I was part of the team that went. Christina was not.
They moved to the IB visit, I couldn't come.
She has done other things. I know that the principals also have been engaged because the equity team has also been invited to some of the things that the principals have been doing, and all of the administrators actually at the all colleges. And they've also been doing some trainings. Dr. Carey.
Yeah, principals have been trained all year. We've had several meetings throughout the year, and they were getting full-day presentations, half-day presentations, so they're going to be well-versed.
And one last question I had, this is for Nova. And this is a question. Do you believe there should be some type of parental engagement when it comes to equity? I know a lot of this is focused on like students, but at what stage of duty should we engage in? I don't know.
I think it's a good question because, I mean, clearly all stakeholders need to be involved in any meaningful change. I guess my experience as IB coordinator has been like that step one is to make sure that the staff is comfortable with the lingo, that the staff is prepared, and then step two is to bring in the students and then parents. So I think we're just at the developmental stage of this, but I certainly imagine that is something, is, you know, particularly when we really feel like the ball is rolling and we have something to present or we have something meaningful to engage, then I definitely, I mean, I can't see why we wouldn't involve the community, you know, in that type of way, absolutely.
Mr. Brown, I just also want to point out that when it comes to our commitments, because really a lot of this is aspirational. Like we know that we are not here, otherwise we wouldn't need to do the work, right? Because we'd already be there. So in terms of looking to the future and what it is that we're aspiring to do, we made sure that we put in the community in general or families specifically into all of our conversations. How are we engaging families? How are we making our systems more accessible to our families and to the community? And so we, as a team, have a broad lens with sort of, it's like an ever-expanding circle, I guess is kind of the way I want to think about it. So there are some systemic pieces we need to get into place. There are some people pieces we need to get into place. And then hopefully all of that will kind of synergize into transformation for our students, for our staff, for our school climates and culture, our curriculum, and then also our families in the community. So.
Yeah, see that one, but we're their community. Good job.
Thank you for that question.
So I've got a couple of questions. One, are you getting the resources you need?
Yes.
To do this work?
Yes.
Okay. And because when you were here in August, I, made the statement, you're not getting the resources, I want to hear about it. So that's good to hear. When I think of an equity state, so I really like the welcome, value, and power. That it's quick, it grabs you. I'm thinking that if somebody asks us what our equity statement is it kind of the whole place, the whole thing here, or is it, I think of a statement as having a noun and a verb, and welcome, power, value, and power. How do we kind of market this in kind of our website and how, on our agenda? I mean, how do we socialize this? What are we going to take from here that kind of grabs everybody and says we're committed to this because we do it every day? You don't have to answer that question right now, but that's kind of what I'm thinking.
Well, no, actually, I could sort of tell you where we are with that right now, because that was a conversation we had. Laura's feeling very vindicated right now, because she always tells me that if I can put more words into things, I will. That's just I know that about myself. Anyway, so we had a conversation, right? And we wanted to make sure.
She give me $5 before this.
We wanted to make sure that the statement captured all of our core beliefs, because the other problem that can sometimes happen with equity and diversity work is if you try to simplify it down too much, then it sort of loses the depth of meaning or the robustness, right? So sort of the conversation we had was, this is the complete statement. And if you go to the website, it'll be there, whatever. But that whole idea of now we have welcome, value, and power, right? So that's sort of like a key phrase that we can use. We talked about breaking it down into smaller parts and having even some like icons that go with it. So when you see this, you know that we're talking about community engagement, or if you see this, then we're going to be talking about, student agency or whatever. Those are still going to be ongoing conversations.
Okay.
We have talked a little bit about how we want to roll it out. So rolling it out to staff, we'll roll out the complete statement. As we said, it'll be on the website. How that gets sort of filtered through the other aspects of the district and how it works is a conversation that we'll need to continue to have.
Okay.
To make sure that it's
And
accessible.
you kind of know what I
100%.
Yeah, I mean,
100%.
I don't know, and I really think welcome, value, and power is where it's at, because I agree with Heather that if you try to pare down equity work, which is so deep and valuable to so many people, and it has so many different facets, it really can just end up watering it down. And I don't know, we went through ours is so much shorter than so many of them that we saw. Ours is very concise compared to the other equity statements that we saw from other districts, and that was something that we had in mind at the time. And so we were thinking if we can really roll that out in a way that's meaningful to other people, that those three words, welcome, value, and power, like that can be our catchphrase for equity. That we want to welcome our students, we want to make them feel valued, and we want to empower them to make a change.
We weave equity into something. Okay.
Well, we welcome your draft statement. Feel free to chime in. We welcome any type of brainstorming that comes from this.
Have you seen the equity statement that you might look at? Have you seen any equity statement without the word diversity, culture, and anything like that? Really not. The ones that you have seen include those words? Yeah, and I understand it, really desperate, really dissect it and all that. I understand with those three words that you have up there. But if I was from the outside looking in and seeing it for the first time, and probably will not able to grasp the two questions first and say that's thank you.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
I mean, I understand truly what you're saying. And I understand but
I like where you're going with the place. I mean, we could add a couple more words, like welcome what, value who, empower what, yeah. I mean, we can add a little bit to that. That's good feedback.
I do understand.
Yeah.
Keep it short and sweet. But saying it for the first time, like, is that a you get the word diversity, things like that, quite a way to
I see.
Well, and ultimately, the best drafted equity statement in the world means nothing if we're not living it. So I think that all this is a starting place, right? So now we've identified our core values. We've drafted a statement that is going to tell the world that this is what we aspire to, this is what we want to be, this is who we believe that we are, and then the way that And then there's an education piece to that, because not everyone is, for instance, one of the things that is probably going to join that statement is a glossary, so that if someone doesn't understand what an anti-oppressive or anti-racist lens is, now we have some definitions for them, right? So this is going to be an ongoing process of education for our teachers, our students, our families, our community, and we have to then live it, because otherwise it's just going to be a pretty statement that sits on a website that doesn't actually mean anything.
Definitely so,
yeah.
Any other comments from the board?
I just had one, because I guess one of the things is the anti-racist and the anti-oppressive lens, but I think that when you're looking at different situations, you're also looking at toxic environments. And so that, and I mean, and we experience that at different times. So I think that that should be something else that we should include in the process, because that is one of the things that when you look at anti-oppressive and you look at anti-racist, we're also looking at an environment that's free from toxicity as well, which could mean unruly students, or it could mean unruly parents, or it could mean any number of things. But it says that's something that we will not tolerate, in the district. And I think even in looking at your statement, I think it's a great statement when you talk about fostering authentic relationships. And what does that, I think the bigger one is, what does an authentic relationship look like? It looks like something that honors another person, because we all bring with us different beliefs, cultures, and systems. And so an authentic relationship would foster those individual items within our, education community, which is inclusive. So that's just my suggestion. But I like the concept.
Okay, thank you, Heather and Christina. Appreciate your work.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to curriculum.
Next up, curriculum. Yeah, they said.
You're not a Harvard.
No, you just have the.
Don't tell us anything predictable, Laura. Nothing predictable.
They're all, just put those into one page.
Unless mine's off. No, I don't.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, now we get to talk a little bit about predictability and achievement, I guess. So tonight I'm going to talk to you about the 2019 Illinois report card. And school report cards are released on October 30th. And part of the requirement is that we do a presentation to the board after the release of the report card at our regular school board meeting. So we're going to start, the website for the Illinois report card is illinoisreportcard.com. And when you go to the site, you're going to see that little gray box there that says find your school or your district, and you simply type in Crete Monee or any one of our schools, and what will happen is something like this will pop up. This is the district one, and you'll notice all those nice red arrows there. Those kind of are pointing you to some really important information. If you look at the top on the, I wish I had a little pointer, but if you look at the top right, you'll see that View at a Glance PDF. That's a one sheet at a glance report. Those are also posted on our district website. And so that's like one sheet, just a quick bit of information. If you go down to where it says ISB Classic PDF report card, that's in the middle of the screen, that's about a 20-page report card that you can click on and look at. So, you're going from surface information to more in-depth information. And then on the website, on the left side, where it says District Snapshot, you'll see these active links going down the side: academic progress, district environment, students, teachers, administrators. And then if you want to access the schools in the district, you click on schools in the district, and it would take you to any one of our schools with a similar page like this. So the first part of the report card this year are the ESSA summative designations for schools. This is the second year that the designations have been issued. And under ESSA, we now have a way to give schools designations based on multiple measures of success. And those involve proficiency as well as growth. We have 4 designations, starting with the top one is the exemplary. Those are the top 10% of all schools in the state. And the criteria is not only do they fall in the top 10%, but high schools would have to have a graduation rate of 67%, and they can have no underperforming student groups. Then you have the commendable schools, which are the same as the exemplary, except they're not in the top 10%. And then we come to the next level, which is underperforming. And those schools have 1 or more student groups that are performing below the all group of the lowest performing 5% of schools in the state. And then the next category is the lowest performing, and those are the lowest 5% of Title I schools statewide. And generally, high schools have a graduation rate below 67%. These multiple measures are categorized into 2 categories. We have academic indicators and school quality or student success indicators. And you can see here we've got a division between those of 75% and 25%, which equals the 100% needed for designation. I think the important one on this one, these are our elementary and middle schools, is that if you look at number 1 and number 2, we have language arts growth and math growth. And if you combine that, that accounts for 50% of the 75% for the academic indicators. So there really is a focus on student growth. And then at the bottom for the 25%, we're looking at chronic absenteeism and our climate survey, which is the 5 essentials survey. And that's really just a participation rate. Are we getting all of our students who are supposed to be taking the survey? When you move on to high school, again, it's still 75-25. And really the difference here, we have a couple differences. One is in the academic indicators, the 50% growth is changed to 50% for our graduation rate.
Great.
And then at the bottom, instead of 2 indicators, we have a third, which is the 9th graders on track to graduate. And that's based on credit. So that bottom one has 3 instead of 2 for the elementary schools. So I wanted to give you a context for our designation. So this is the state data from this year. And you can see that in the state, we have a total of 3,747 schools. We have 402 that were considered in the top 10% or exemplary. 2,793, so almost 2,800 schools are considered commendable. That's about 75% of the schools in the state. We have 384 that are underperforming and 168 that are lowest performing. The reason the asterisk is by the 384 is that when you go in and you actually look at the list of schools that are considered having an underperforming student group, what you'll find is that of those 384, 248 of them, the only underperforming student group they have is students with disabilities. That accounts for 78% of that underperforming group. So it's just something to think about. And now for the moment you've all been waiting for, our designations. We have 7 schools that are eligible for designations. ELC does not get one yet, although something for our primary students or early childhood students will be coming. And Monee Education Center does not fit the profile for doing this. So this year we have 6 commendable schools. Crete Monee Middle School and Crete Elementary have moved from the underperforming category to the commendable category. And then Balmoral Elementary is still in the underperforming category because of the children with disabilities student group.
And Laura, I can't remember, are the kids that go to Monee Education Center, are they included in the schools they would be at?
They are. They're attached to the home school, high school, and middle school. And the other part of the report card are those active links on that were on the left-hand side. And I just put these slides in because I wanted to show you just the massive amount of information that's on the report card. So you can see under academic progress, we have several things listed there. The state assessment results for both growth and proficiency. There's also a lot of information there on achievement gaps, and you can actually go in and manipulate the data and compare different student groups to each other. There's information on participation, and then my favorite are these scatter plots, which, again, is a graph, and you're looking at a lot of dots, and you can kind of see what that looks like. We also have our 8th graders who take and pass Algebra 1, the 9th grade on track, which I mentioned earlier, Early college coursework, those are the students in our high school who are taking AP courses and dual credit. And then we have our graduation rate. The state actually looks at graduation rate over a 4-, 5-, and 6-year period. Post-secondary enrollment, obviously the percentage of students who are enrolling either in a community or four-year college after graduation. And then the last one is community college remediation rate. And that is for students who enroll in a community college, how many of them are having to enroll in a remedial course? When you move on to district environment, we have 5 essential survey results. Actually, it's there, but it only really is for schools, but it falls into that category. And then you're getting information about district finances. What's new this year is now we have information on school finances, and that's basically how much money is the district spending per student at each of our buildings. So that's kind of a new and interesting metric. And then, you know, your typical things like class size. I don't know why this is here, but it is. Number of school days per year, which everybody across the state pretty much has the same. And then health and wellness is considered just how many days a week our students are in PE. When you get to students, it's pretty much everything you want to know about students who attend your district. How many of them are there? What is our racial ethnic diversity, our low income percentage, how many students have IEPs, are homeless, English language learners, attendance, mobility, chronic absenteeism, I'll get into that a little bit later, dropout rate, and chronic fluency. And now there are things in there about teachers, and I know our equity statement talked about a diverse staff. We also have information here on our teacher demographics, level of education, pupil-teacher ratio, retention, average salary, number of teachers in our district, their attendance, and their evaluation ratings. And then we have some information on our administrators. All of these, when you go in and you look at this, you'll get the 2019 data. Many of them have 5-year data and 10-year data attached to it. They also give you an explanation of what all of those are. They put it in some kind of context for you. And if you're really interested and you want to research it, they provide resources that you can go to learn more about it. So again, nothing you can cover in what I was told had to be a 5-minute presentation by my colleagues. So I just wanted to go over some key data points, and we talked about these a little bit last week. Our Illinois Assessment of Readiness, that's the assessment that our students in grades 3 through 8 take. We were at 30%, we had a 1% increase. Our math score went down to 1%. So we went up in one area, down in the other. Our 11th graders take SAT, that's currently the only high school assessment that counts for this. We were at 21% for English language arts. That was a 5% decrease. And as I pointed out to you last week, that's based on the Illinois state cut score. When you look at the College Board benchmark score for college readiness, we had 52% of our students meet that benchmark. So just to give it a little perspective. SAT math, really no change from last year. Our science assessment, we were at 31%, which is a 1% increase. And then we talked about growth a little bit earlier. There are actually growth percentiles that are published, and we had 3 student groups where their growth percentile average exceeded the state average for that particular group. And those were our Black, white, and Hispanic students had higher than the state average for those student groups. And then in math, our English language learner students exceeded the state average for their group in the growth percentile. Other academic indicators, the percentage of 8th graders taking and passing Algebra 1. And keep in mind, this is not, we don't expect all 8th graders to take Algebra 1, but the students who take it and pass, we are at 26%, which was a 1% increase, and that's our highest level to date. Our 9th grade on track to graduate, I'm really proud of this one. I know the high school's been focusing a lot on their 9th grade students. We were at 90%, which was an 8% increase over the previous year, and the previous, I think, 5 years have been pretty stable at 82%. So this was a huge increase for us. Our 4-year graduation rate remains at 92%, which is above the state average. Our college enrollment, we were up 5% at 67%. And another great percentage here is that the community college remediation rate was at 37%. It was one of the lowest ones in the area. It was a 10% decrease from last year. And we've decreased that percentage 24% over the last 5 years. So it was at 61% 5 years ago. So our kids are when they're going into community college, more and more of them are taking credit period courses. And I think I mentioned this earlier. Sure.
So the decreases there are good?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay,
For that one, yes.
okay.
And then early college coursework, we talked about students enrolled in AP or dual credit courses. Last year, we had 717 students at the high school enrolled in early college coursework. That's been a 72% increase for us since 2016. We've had a real strong focus, especially on advanced placement. And right now, as it stands, 50% of our students at the high school for last year were enrolled in early college coursework, which I think is phenomenal. Our advanced placement numbers are up, and that's been a big focus for the high school. We've been part of the Equal Opportunity Schools Equity Initiative for the last 3 years. And last year we had 350, we had almost 600 students enrolled in advanced placement. 351 took AP tests that totaled 925 exams. And we had 231 students that earned college credit. And our dual credit, we had over 200 students taking dual credit courses. And our CTE courses, career and technical ed, we were at 457. So some really nice numbers there. Our students are getting a very broad experience, a lot of good experiences.
So we have freshmen taking early college coursework, but
Yes.
they cannot take an advanced placement.
Yes, they can.
But we did not have it necessary for first freshmen.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, freshmen, you got advanced placement, grades 10 through 12.
Well, the state, if you look in different places, and I was trying to get this right off of the school report card site, they are only giving us numbers for 10th through 12th grade, but if you go on and you look at the classic report card, our 9th graders are in that number.
Do you know what that is?
I don't know off the top of my head. It's not a lot. I think it was lower last year because really there's really only one AP course that we're offering freshman year. This year it's an advanced placement. It's a social studies class. And I believe before we had human geography, this one's on political systems. We switched it out, but it probably raised the number maybe 20, 25 students. Yeah. Okay. And then these other indicators, our students with IEPs, we're kind of at the highest level that we've been in 5 years at 19%. We're higher than the state average. Some new ones that they're really focusing on, you notice this chronic absenteeism is one of our indicators that is weighted for in the 25%. Chronic absenteeism is relatively new, but it's just any student who misses 10% or more of the school year. So 10% of the school year is 18 days. So we're looking at any student that misses 18 or more days of school, whether they had a valid reason for being absent or not. Chronic truancy, on the other hand, are students who miss 5% of the school year that are not excused from school. Both of those numbers have gone up, but as you know, we do have a truancy specialist that we've hired that's helping us work on these numbers. And then our dropout rate increased, and our teacher attendance, while it's still below the state average, we did improve 4%. We went from 59% to 63%, and we do have an attendance initiative going on this year that we're hoping will raise that percentage as well.
Yes, we have students, but no teachers.
Or we're missing both.
Missing both.
I would think this should equal 100% of the students that graduate with 92. Then you got the dropout rate, which is 4. That's 96. So that's
Oh, the graduation rate is calculated one way, and the dropout rate is calculated another. So it's not going to add up.
The dropout rate would be across all 4 grades, right? For graduation
Yes.
rates, just for seniors.
Yes.
So.
That was the new math.
And then we found this quick venue, so we added that. Because it doesn't fit, so we're like. Does anybody have any other questions?
That was great.
Some of the stuff on here
That's on our website, right?
Yeah.
We can take that and share that. Some of this information, I think, is important. Sorry, I keep forgetting. Some of this information is important to share with all our communities. To help increase our persona of, there's actually a ton of good stuff going on here. That, I mean, I think there's a ton of good things happening. I mean, you look at some of those numbers, what our high schoolers are doing is amazing. And then some of our eighth graders are taking high school courses. So there's some stuff here that we just want to get out.
Well, the presentation you're going to hear from later will help to highlight some of these things. So that's a good segue for a little bit later.
Laura, could you just go back to the one slide on the 20, that showed the number of high schools and elementary schools? When you look at the underperforming, it's almost all in elementary schools versus the relative proportion of elementary schools to high schools. Any conclusion there or any observation?
Well, the way that this is all calculated is it's a very convoluted method. So what they do is they take your raw scores, your raw percentages for each of those indicators that I showed you, and they have a mathematical computation that they do. And they have certain ways that they calculate each thing. So your ELA proficiency is calculated a certain way. So maybe we have 30% of our kids that met or exceeded state standards, and then they have a way they calculate off of that to get what they call an indicator score. And when they add all these indicator scores up and they multiply them by the weight, they come out with this number. And then they rank order schools. And when they rank order schools, so they're going to rank order K-8 schools and they're going to rank order high schools. When they do that and they find the lowest 5%, so in the high school rank, when they find the lowest 5%, whatever that mathematical computation, that number is, that's where they draw the line. So in reality, that number can change every year depending on how everybody does. So what happened with high schools is the number that identified the lowest 5% was, say, here. The number that identified the lowest 5% in the K-8 schools was here. This number was much lower. So when it was low, and it was lower than it was last year, so when it becomes lower, then all the schools above it fall into either commendable or underperforming, depending on what their student groups do. They didn't make an easy system. It's.
I was afraid that was going to be your answer.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm actually surprised I was able to explain it.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, we're going to move on from here because I think this addresses Mr. Swalsh's question about getting the word out. And right behind me. Okay. We have to go on live on a website here to show you. Look at this one.
Can I just make a comment? I didn't want to say anything, but I guess I really feel like I have to say something. I know I'm very verbal, but I can remember sitting here and I can remember listening to the numbers maybe a year or two ago and feeling very dismal about what I saw in paper. So to see the level increases and the slight movement toward decreasing the numbers, I think that, it really should be commended. And, I would like to ask the question of what are we doing differently, but I just want to have a comment of commendation. Is that it? I would like to think it's me.
Well, I think part of what happens here, and again, these school report cards there is such an incredible amount of information on there that is trying to capture the work that we do, but it's all pulled, it's all from information that the state pulls from our system. And we do have a place where principals can highlight their schools, it's not really allowing us to tell our story.
Right.
Because, you know, there are things going on that aren't in our student information system, that they're not metrics that the state is interested in you know, getting to.
Yeah.
That's their system. So we know that we now have our strategic plan, and one of the things that we've been waiting to do is to create the dashboard around the strategic plan. So tonight, we wanted to present here, because we want the community to see this, that we are now working on creating that dashboard around the strategic plan that allows us to tell our story. And so there are 3 parts to the dashboard, and this will be going live eventually later on in the year. It's still a work in progress, but we wanted to let people know that we are working very hard to get this up and running. So there's 3 parts to this. This is the home page right now, and you'll see our motto across the top, unity starts with you, that I believe came out of my colleague's school. Yes, she worked very hard with her school to get that. But it's a great motto. And below that, you'll see our future forward. And in the middle is our mission statement. We've got our vision statements going around the circle around the mission statement. And then our values or commitments are around the outside of that. So this is kind of I guess it's the visual to our strategic plan, or part of our strategic plan that we developed and approved earlier this year. So that's page 1. The next page that you go to, and I think this is where we wanted to get to, Mr. Squash, is that these are what we call indicators. And basically, these are the pieces of information that we want to get out to the community to tell our story. And you can see here, these are the ones that Ms. Perkins and I have been kind of working on, and these are under development. But you'll see here, we've got our little green circle there. That's our local growth model. We've talked about that. How students right now, at least based on our standardized test scores, are they're getting expected growth. You can see some of these other tiles are simply a repeat of some of the data that the state has. So our company that's building this for us has just pulled stuff from the information from the school report card. But some of these we really wanted to highlight. Like when you go across here, you'll see one that says Crete Monee Middle School students earning high school credit, and there's 88, and that's to the far right in that middle row. We have students at the middle school that are taking high school courses for high school credit, and they're earning that before they get to high school. And last year, we had 88 students that did that. So we wanted, again, that's a great piece of information. We wanted to get that out there and make sure that people see that. Another one that we have on here is, if you'll see the number 78, that's the number of students who are enrolled in our JROTC program. And again, we're talking about student pathways. So not only is it a pathway to college, but it could be a pathway to military, it could be a pathway to career. So for us, that's a way to tell the story that we have an opportunity here for students to do some military, some leadership work, some military science. And we want to make sure that that's one of our indicator tiles. Another one we have here is our early college program enrollment. We send seniors every year to Prairie State to take college coursework. And we have students that are getting 1 or 1 to 2 years worth of college already completed before they graduate from high school. Last year, 60 students had that opportunity. And that's the maximum. It could be more, but that's the maximum that Prairie State allows us. So we like to see that number 60 up there every year, because we know we're taking maximum advantage of that program. And another one we have is at the bottom left is Kankakee Area Career Center. We have 68 students enrolled at KACC, and they go there and they take credit that gets them industry certifications, gets them dual credit with college. And again, that's another great metric to have, because now we're getting students that are looking at trades. They're getting, certifications that are going to allow them to go out and get jobs.
Are the KACC students included in the dual credit percentage?
Sometimes they are, because
depending on what
there's KACC, some of the courses that they take are offered for dual credit. There are about 3 or 4 that are not, but they still get industry certification. So there is some overlap. But again, another great way to tell our story.
So we have 60 that can go to Prairie State, and then we have 68 to the KCC. So is there a limit there or for the,
We've had it higher, but now that we've brought programs back to our high school, students are staying with us for like our welding. We don't have students going to KCC for welding anymore because they're getting it here. So our manufacturing program, our carpentry class, students are able to stay here and take it as opposed to going to KCC.
Okay.
So that's kind of just a draft, and we've got these for all areas of the strategic plan. So you'll see down here, the next set of tiles is learning environment. This right now just has some basic data here, but we're going to be populating that very soon. We've got around our goal 3 around high quality staff. We'll be populating that some more. Community partnerships is goal 4, I believe. We're going to start building those tiles. Facilities, Dr. Crete Monee's talked about the facilities plan, so some information about that will be coming up here. And then Mr. Surma will be creating more information into the finances tile. So it's like our financial rating, things that are important in that area. So he'll be building tiles there too. So that is the second part of this. And I think this is really important because, like you said, we need to be able to tell our story. When this is all done, it'll be linked to our website, and then people can go on and access the dashboard, and they'll be able to see everything that we have. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Perkins, and she's going to talk to you about the third piece.
So the final piece on the dashboard is the strategies piece. We have, there we go. We have 6 goals, and under each of those goals, we have 16 strategies. One of the goals you can see is to provide a challenging and equitable education for all students to promote a pathway for life success. That has been given to the Office of Curriculum and Instruction, and it talks about we have 5 strategies there, and it lists the strategies of how we are going to get to that work. Let's see. And then we are able to measure where we are from 0 to 100%, and we're able to go in and put those metrics in and tell you exactly where we are. Each of the strategies has been assigned to different departments. I don't think I have to use this slide. Yeah. And so goal 2 with safety and being respectful. Again, that goes to Office of Curriculum and District Affairs. And each department will then go in and put in the work that is being done. And then we will be able to put that information back into the tiles. It's not playing nice here. Any questions on the strategies? We will be able to go live once the strategies are complete. We will be able to go live once we get all the information back into the indicators and all of these tiles are filled with data.
When do we expect that to happen?
January, we'll be ready for January, February. 2020.
And, part of this is, it's a living, breathing document, so our intention is to provide you quarterly updates so that you can get in here with us and we can talk about our work and where we're at on this. So it'll be.
And one of the next steps too is that we will be able to push this out to the schools. So schools will be able to tell their own individual stories.
Yes, with their own data.
Yes.
So we talked about that at another meeting.
Last week, yes, it was just last week.
So each school will be able to create their own story, meaning show their growth and how they're excelling in different things. Because obviously here, high school, right? Primarily, I know there's some middle school in there.
Yes,
But
it's, because, because we have one high school data is district data. But
Right.
the high school will be able, so when we do this, we'll duplicate the dashboard for each building. Each building will then go in and create tiles that tell the school story. And it can be around lots of different things, just, the sky's the limit.
Can I ask a question? So are you utilizing this document as, like this information here would be considered a baseline for you? Is that correct or no? Are you measuring against that? Like if it's like a metric and you're seeing what you're doing quarterly, you're able to take that information and see if there's any changes to it, to monitor it quarterly, but even at the year end, it actually becomes a metric for you so that you can see where your opportunity for growth was and where your challenges may be, where you get to redirect your energy in another place. So I think it's a great document, but it looks to me like it's presenting you with a metric that maybe, you didn't have, but it also gives you opportunity to not only to deliver the school's message, but to also deliver the development, as of the district. Great.
Thank you, John. We're excited about this.
So our final piece from the Office of Curriculum tonight is an update on our e-learning plan. So we briefly talked about it, but we want to make sure that we understand this year is our planning and development year. Once the plan is approved by the board, we will be able to open it up for the following school year for 2021. We have put the plan out to the board in our FYI. We have shared it with our principals, which in turn have shared it with their staff. We have shared it with our families on the website. And we completed our first thought exchange where we asked our families pre-K to 12 what their thoughts were. And that thought exchange closed on this past Friday. We had 400 participants that gave us 400 thoughts and 7,500 ratings. What our families told us was that for our pre-K 5 is that those parents want resources and support when their kids are at home, that they know how to help them. And pretty much 612 said they know that their kids can do it on their own, but they also want to make sure that there's some type of hotline or some kind of support that those students can call into.
Ms. Perkins, can you talk a little bit about what Thought Exchange is for everybody?
Yes. So the Thought Exchange is an online communicator that allows you to pose a question. And it went out through our Skyward Sis program to all of our pre-K 12 parents. And so it asks them the question of what is it that you would like us to think about as we develop this plan? And so 400 participants weighed in and they rated 7,500 times. And like I said, the indicator that they said most is they want to make sure that their child has support during those days, that they can either call into someone or resources are sent home or available on our website for them to help their student at home.
We wanted to mention this because particularly this is a brand new software piece that we're using this year. And this was our way to actively go out there and get community voice in everything that we're doing here so that they have input and everybody's equally heard. So we wanted to highlight that because that is actually one of the avenues of our strategic plan is how we're engaging in the community.
And we will put those results on the website. I am going to a training tomorrow morning on e-learning and getting information from our ROE on what is the expectation for student online protection and then any updates that we have from the state on e-learning. I will also be attending a training at the III conference on e-learning. And so once I gather all of that information, along with the thought exchange results, all of that information will be updated on the website. Our next steps are also, we will be using one of our school improvement days in February. Teachers will be developing a plan developing their lesson plans if we were to have an e-learning day. And then we will have a practice day for students. Even though we're not using it this year, we're preparing for it as if we were. We will bring it to the board for a vote in May after we have a public hearing, and then we will submit it to the ROE for its approval. In March, we have coming up a parent survey asking them about access and trying to find any barriers and get a sense of where we are with parents and having access at home.
Now, can you share with the board how many e-learning plans have been approved from the ROE at this point?
One.
So you need
They
to,
already shared with us.
with one, so we'll show that to the community.
In the news again.
Yeah.
Because I guess they're talking about it because everybody's talking about doing it. And there was a big article that it's only been one so far. And they listed out their metrics and how tough they're being on the metrics they're looking for in your plan.
There were 3 pilot districts that worked on their plan. They had 3 years. And so we're learning a lot of information from those 3 pilot districts, and they are sharing their information with us.
Next year.
Yes, next
We
year.
are looking to go live with this e-learning next year.
Yes,
So we are still in the trial and error phase of pilot phase.
We're piloting, yeah.
yes.
Okay, so a lot of the information that's been broadcast out there about this program was based on a district that has used this e-learning for 3 years or something.
Yes, so there were 3 pilot districts throughout the state that piloted it for 3 years. They put it into action last year when we had those polar vortex days.
Yeah.
They were able to finally use it, but it took them, they developed the plan over a 3-year period.
Okay, so I want to apologize, Dr. Coglinice, about, I basically was saying we should have been on top of this last year. And if we had moved forward, we probably would have to take 6 steps back and start all over again. So we are conforming to the laws as they may be, right? There's a standard out there that the state is putting forth for us to follow. So, and you say a lot of districts have had to start over, right? I don't want to say a lot, but quite a few.
Well, I appreciate the mentioning of that. Thank you.
Yeah, because I was kind of all over. Why had we not used this program for this e-learning last year, but we had those snow days and all of that? We wasn't ready, and
Nobody was. Yeah.
nobody was.
Right.
But would it be fair to say because we're a unit district, it's a little more difficult because we have to worry about the younger ages all the way up through high school, which is a different scenario in both cases?
Absolutely. We have our pre-K students that we have to worry about. Our K-5 at this time would not be taking devices home. We're looking into seeing at what grade levels they would be able to take devices home. So we are exploring all of our options with our teachers. We are going to do something called a blizzard bag, where they will be able to take those things home, the work home, but we are, again, still developing with the teachers and working with them and our families to figure out what is going to be the best way for this.
Right, and as a parent, I participated in that, what's it called again? Thought exchange. And it was intense, so I'm pleasantly surprised that you got so many people to do that. Yeah, because that took quite a while, as I recall. I did it when I was in Tennessee, kind of on a little vacation. But if I had been home doing my normal stuff, I don't know that I would have taken the time to do it. So I'm pleasantly surprised that you got so much input.
And it is a tool that you don't necessarily have to write a comment, and that's the rating system where someone else may write a comment and you can just share your thought that I agree with this person. So it can be challenging for you if you want to write as many comments as you want, or you can just rate and say, I agree, or I disagree with this person. So thank you for that. Any other questions?
When will we hear an update again on e-learning? About the same time, maybe it's a strategic dashboard, would that be about the same?
When's our next update for us? Maybe spring.
I would say by the spring, because we will have the feedback from the teachers, the plans that they have developed. So, and then we will be ready to present something, I would say, by March, as we get ready to ask you to vote on it.
Okay. Sounds good.
Great.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Perkins.
Next up is the consent agenda approval. Before I get a motion, do any of the board members, would they like to remove a consent agenda item for individual consideration?
I would like to remove under the business section, Delta number 4, and vote on that separately. Delta number 4?
Remove the request for consent to assignment of contract.
That's correct.
For Hopewell.
Okay, any others? Okay, can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda minus D4, request for consent to assignment of contract, Hopewell Services / first student, which will be debated and voted on separately?
So move.
Okay, roll call please.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Aye.
Mrs. Root?
Aye.
Mr. Sawalish?
Aye.
Mrs. Walters?
Aye.
Mrs. Galbraith is in, Mr. Albrecht?
Aye. Consent agenda carries, motion carries. Okay. Can I get a motion to approve the request for consent to assignment of contract for Hopewell Services / first student?
So move.
Second.
Is there any discussion prior to the vote? Okay, roll call please. When you're ready.
Well, from my understanding, we don't really have much choice, right? I mean,
No,
there's,
this is Hopewell Services, which provides bus services, certain bus services for us being acquired by First Student. And this just provides our
Right.
consent to sign the contract for Hopewell to First Student.
And just overall for me, you know, I think everybody kind of, I don't want to say everybody or speak for anybody, but I've heard quite a few of us having some issues with the first student overall. And I know we do not have much of a choice for this other service that Hopewell has been providing for us, but nonetheless, they are being absorbed by this first student. So I believe it's going to carry, and I believe the motion is going to carry, but it's more of a gesture for me. Like that.
Are you ready for roll call?
Mrs. Walters?
Aye.
Mr. Sawalish?
Aye.
Mrs. Root?
Aye.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye, no, nay.
Please vote one more time.
Nay.
Nay. Thank you. Mrs. Galbraith is in, aye. Mr. Albrecht?
Aye.
Success.
Okay, motion carries. Okay, action reports, human resources.
Just to read to approve it.
So do I need to read?
Yeah, just to read each of those.
Each of those, okay. Can I have a motion to approve the personnel reports, a certified employment, certified leave of absence, certified return from leave of absence, certified resignation, educational support employment, educational support reassignment, educational support leave of absence, educational support return from leave of absence, and educational support resignation?
Second.
Any discussion or questions? Okay, roll call.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Aye.
Mrs. Root?
aye.
Mr. Sawalish?
Aye.
Mrs. Walters?
Aye.
Mrs. Galbraith is in, Mr. Albrecht?
Aye. Motion carries. Okay. Next up, can I have a motion to approve a 3% increase to the salaries of all administrators with the exception of the superintendent and non-union employees hired to their current positions prior to June 1st, 2019, and apply retroactively to July 1st, 2019.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
I have some discussion on this, if anyone else does. I really support paying our employees what they deserve. I think we've had this conversation, I'd like to go on record as taking another look at it when it's time again. Number one, I'd like to see the administrators split up from the salary employees. I think we need to address them separately. And number two, I think we do need to address the fact that we're still considered very top-heavy in this district. I hear it all the time now because we're looking to do facilities, we're looking to do finance, we're looking to sell bonds, all this. And they're questioning what we're doing with all the administration. So that's not going away. That's been long before I came on board. I think now when we're saying that we're looking at every penny, we really need to look at every penny. So I'm challenging you when this comes around or before this comes around again, that we have all our ducks in a row. And maybe with the future board and whatever, when we do whatever we have to do, but I'm concerned about some of this. And we've already had these discussions a lot, but they're not always on tape, so I'd like to be on record as saying that I do have some concerns still about how this is all lumped together. I think we need to look at this for the future as not one item.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. I just want to agree
Yeah.
with Ms. Gilbreth that if we separate it out, we can look at it differently. But as long as we do that by prior to June 1st, at least have a discussion on it, just so we can make two categories. I agree with what she's saying.
Okay.
I agree, and I
great.
think maybe that even calls for a workshop because we're trying to transition and move into a different dynamic around salary and salary structure that we may need to have more conversation than what we would get, in a regular meeting environment.
Yeah, and I think at the committee of the whole last week, we discussed
Yeah.
and presented to Dr. Coglanese to come back before, as you said, before we have to make a decision about increases for the following school year for this group of employees, that we kind of come back with and kind of rationalize our compensation philosophy for this group
Right.
of employees. And I agree with you, Janine, that you could look at our non-union salary employees separately from administrators.
Mhm.
But we'll leave that to Dr. Coglanese to bring back and make some recommendations to the board.
Probably, what time would you like this? What time of the year?
Tomorrow. Well, I think out of respect, because it's technically 5 months later. So out of respect to the non-union and the administrators, we don't want to make them wait 5 months again. So I would say sometime in May, have a discussion, right? We'll look at that, if it has to happen.
I would say
a little earlier.
Yeah, I would say March or April, kind of.
And we can vote on it, right?
So that we're prepared to have a direction that that this group of employees kind of knows where the board is prior to the school year starting effective July 1st.
Because our evaluation process usually is March, so we could tie it around that time period.
And again, I will be very repetitive in nature if I say some of the things that my colleagues has already said. But again, I think there was a lessons learned here to be a little bit more proactive, getting us the information prior to asking us to vote on finance like this. That's one of our key roles and responsibility as a board member, is to be good financial stewards. And when you look at one of the things here, and may be indicative on how I would vote, is when we had our, I want to say, because we don't even know that at this point, we're just getting an idea where our financial indicator is going to be. We had that number, I saw it earlier, between 3.07, 3.53, something like that. And I went back and over the last couple of days, looked at some of our financial history, financial profiles, and I think last October in 2018, it was broadcast that we was one of 7 districts that was on the financial watch list, which was erroneous, but nonetheless, it was broadcast out there. And I recall the last time we had a financial review that the public did not receive that well. It was broadcast in newspapers, so on and so forth, how responsive we were when it came to finance. So they are watching us. They're watching us with a fine, absolutely. And I am not against our employees receiving what they deserve.
Exactly.
Not at all. You know, I work for a living, so I know, you know, a little bit of work. So being said, we have to, and I don't want to throw a lot of numbers out because our business manager is not here to defend a lot of the information that he had given us. But one thing I'm so happy when he presented us the information last year was on the big 11 by 17 sheet, and not the little small sheet. So let's be a little bit more proactive in sharing numbers with us. Again, this should not come to us this late while our employees have to wait and the information we got. And we had a good, robust conversation and with the board and our board members, and I enjoyed that. I really liked that. That was very good that we all talked about it, digested. Again, receiving information a little earlier would be very good. Enough said.
We'll have it too.
Any other comments? Cindy, Cheryl? Okay, roll call please.
Mr. Brown?
President.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Aye.
Mrs. Root?
Aye.
Mr. Sawaraj?
Aye.
Mrs. Walters?
Aye.
Mrs. Galbraith is an aye. Mr. Albrecht?
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, next up, old business. First, we do have a scheduled item here, monthly transportation discipline update.
Yes, Dr. Clark has been preparing our list of referrals and keeping track of them. So she's got just a PowerPoint slide for us to look at this evening.
So, it doesn't look like you received that, so, but that's okay. It's in your laptops on the last page, I believe it is. And so basically what you're looking at is the discipline referrals, that was received for bus issues. And you will see that for the month of October, those issues have gone down. And so what I'm going to continue to do is track that data for you until you tell me you no longer need that information, just so you can see what is happening or transpiring on the bus, and along with some of the proactive things that we're doing to kind of keep discipline down.
Dr. Clark, we are still monitoring under the school buses quite heavily, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Just want to make sure because I did have a parent reach out to me that there were still concerns, and I thought we had a discussion about the random limited tapes and things like that. So I just want to make sure we're still focusing on that area where we had the initial issue.
Yes, so we've actually had our security as well as our administrators ride the bus. We're just pulling tape just to kind of do some random checks. Even if we don't receive a referral, if a student comes to us and tells us something that happened on the bus, we will pull out the video at that time. And we're also encouraging our drivers, regardless of what route you have, if you're having any problems, to send us that video as well.
How often are we riding the buses?
It's just basically on an as-needed basis. So if there
we're
was,
not just once a week, we're springing on a route or something like that.
it just depends. So for instance, at the middle school, I think you had maybe 2 routes that were problem routes. They rode those routes for about 2 weeks.
Every day?
Almost every day.
And now we're just sporadically doing it?
Yes, and we're sporadically pulling video. So it really just depends on the complaint, and we do need, our staff to be informed. So if we don't know there's a problem, then there's nothing we can do.
Right.
And he's just posted, thank you, the slide for you as well.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
No, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I just think that this should be, I don't think we should stop doing it. We don't have to have the ferocity or the frequency expanded per se, but I think this should be part of what we do. Periodically perform observations on the bus.
No, we agree with you.
That's part of it.
My statement was referring to for as long as you want me to report like this to you.
Yeah.
That's what I'm referring to.
Until they're all flatlined.
I can do it for as long as you want me to do it, yes.
Let Talala continue to ride the same bus as the high school.
That's right.
Any other questions? Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Clark.
Okay. Is there any other old business?
I have a few things. First is, I don't know if it's old business, but I wrote myself a note because I didn't want to forget. I would like to say thank you to Pam Panza. She always makes sure that we're fed, water, whatever, and she's one of our little unsung heroes back there. So I would just like to bring it out in the open and say thank you for all that you do for us and for our schools. I know you're always checking on news, you're always trying to find new things and talking to the kids and the staff and finding out what they need, what works, what doesn't work. And I happened to work the craft show last weekend. And people, everybody's like, where's Pam? Where's Pam? Where's Pam? Because they enjoy talking to you and hearing what you want to do with our kids. So from me to you, thank you very much for what you do every day for CN201U. Every once in a while. I also would like to put a shout out to our high school and MEC. Our high school manufacturing and carpentry classes were approached. Well, actually, I was approached by the Crete Country Christmas Committee. This year, they're introducing 4-foot wooden snowmen that people can pay $30 for, decorate them, and there's going to be a judging contest. Like you decorate your house, you're going to decorate the snowman. So somehow I ended up on that committee too, and they were trying to figure out how they were going to get these snowmen. And I said, my kids can do it, and my kids did it. So those 3 classes put out 30 snowmen in about 7 days. They're 4 feet with a stand, and I understand, I forgot to ask Ms. Trish, but I heard she liked them so much she got some made for the high school to put around her to decorate. So thank you to manufacturing classes. And now I brought the MEC in because they needed posters made. And I was like, don't be paying these people all this money. My kids can do it. So today they solidified it, and MEC will be making, they're like 30 by 50 posters. Does that sound right? 30 inches by 50 inches or something? And they're going to make 24 of them for Crete Country Christmas, and they're going to have all the events on them, pictures of the entertainers, lists of the donors. So that was solidified today. So Arrowhead Design is doing that. So we have 2 of our newer factions getting involved in some of the community things. So those are my shout outs, and then I sort of have a negative. You want to do that? Or does anybody have any good shout outs?
I have a shout out for the high school theater when I went to see the play, and now I can't remember the name. It's not Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, but something about dinner. Yeah, the man who came. Yeah, that was it. Very good. A lot of talent.
His name was Wendy, not Cindy.
Yeah, a ton of talent. It was great.
And I also have a shout out to the middle school for disorderly court. Very impressive. They did a great job with that. So it was awesome. Disorder in the court, I think it was, yeah.
We need to do more shout outs for our schools when they're there.
Okay, so bring me up to speed. What's this shout out?
Well, you know what? They come and they have a good news thing. We need to get all the good news out there.
They would call it
We're doing a shout out.
Shout outs.
old business
Board
shout
shout
out, new
outs.
business shout out. Yeah, let's put that there. It's catchy. That's catchy.
Oh, thank you.
That is, I like that. I'll have a shout out
You have a
next
more
time.
serious item?
I do have a serious item. A while back, this whole bus thing started because we did receive an email from a parent. And in that email was also some concerns about things that were happening at school. I was contacted today and I asked Dr. Karen Nelson to make sure that all of you received a copy of that email. I can't talk about it or think about that email without my stomach churning. If any of this is true, I would like to know why it wasn't addressed, who didn't know about it, who did know about it. There's some very serious things listed in this email. And I'm begging you, Dr. Kara, to get to the bottom of this. And why was this not reported to the board and to you when it was going on? I mean, there's a whole lot of questions I have about this situation. Each one makes me more sick to my stomach than the first one, because no child should have gone through that. And I think somewhere along the line, they dropped this ball horribly. And I don't know if you all read that email, if you all saw it, but no child should have had to experience some of those things. So I'm begging you to find out where that stands. Did those things occur? Did we know about them? Did we act on them? Did we assist the parent who made the complaint? Did we get to the parents of the children who are about? I would like to see a full explanation of what happened.
I'll follow up in my updates this week.
This parent is not going to go away. She's not going to go away, and she's letting other parents know about it. And I agree with her. If we do have this serious situation, we need to fix it, and we need to find out how it got to where it got.
Yeah, I'll give you some specifics in my updates this week.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other old business?
Oh, no, this is my business.
Okay, I've got a new business.
Billy gave me something, I don't know where, but Billy asked me to bring
So,
something up.
I've got a couple of things on new business, both related to Crete Country Christmas. One, I did get our application in for to be in the parade, which is Saturday the 7th.
Nice.
So, once I hear back, I'll get more information out to the board before we meet and, find out who can be involved and so forth, so on and so forth.
Do you just bring it in?
Like, yeah.
Hot chocolate. Or anything?
I'll pass along what I sent in. There's some, you can't throw out candy because it's dark. If we're gonna do candy, you have to walk along the sides. I drove in it last year, and when you get downtown, the people were coming out in the street. It was actually even though you're driving very slowly,
Yeah, you have to push it back.
it's it was a little scary. So anyway, but we can, if nothing else, ride in the truck and wave or, whatever we decide to do. So might ask you for a little decorating idea that's on the truck. So I'll just do donuts in your front yard, pick some things up and come on over. So,
We'll do a snack.
okay, and then the second, related to Crete Country Christmas, the Education Foundation has a chili cook-off. Is going to be the Sunday, December 8th from 12 to 4. It'll be $5 a person to taste all the chili, and there will be soda and water available for purchase. All proceeds will benefit CN 201U Education Foundation. If you're interested in participating as a cook, a $10 cash deposit is required. It says it will be returned. Stop in at Yarn Hollow at 1390 Main Street during business hours. Cooks must have a minimum of 5 gallons of chili. That's a lot of chili. Eat 5 gallons. It is free to participate. There will be 2 prizes awarded: the Grand Champion and People's Choice with prizes. And it will be the contest or the cook-off will be located at the Christmas Lodge on Cass in downtown Crete. There will also be a talent show and performance by the CMHS show choir during the hours of the cook-off, so there will be lots to do. So that sounds like great fun, and if anybody out there is interested in participating, please go to Yarn Hollow. So
And
check
I
it out.
do think that there might be a couple of more groups from the high school that are going to be performing that Sunday. I know they've reached out to Miss Trish, I believe, the dance, group dance team that is also there at football games. I believe they've asked them, and maybe the jazz, is there a jazz combo or something? So I think that I gave them Miss Trish's phone number and asked them to just deal with her directly instead of me trying to funnel all this information. And last I heard, she was trying to wrangle some more of our high school and maybe middle school groups to go on Sunday afternoon also. We're making a family day, more family-oriented things, so, because we've never really done much on Sunday, so. So come out and play.
Any other new business items? Okay. We don't, no need for another closed session?
Nope,
So,
one's enough.
Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So.
Second.
Okay, all in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.
9:05.